Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. And, a lot of times when the Dove was just a radio station, now we're a radio network and also a television network, I used to air these little comedy clips of a very funny lady, Chonda Pierce. And I would play those throughout the morning and people would roar and run out and buy the CD. Well, today we have the honor to have with us Chonda Pierce, and she's called the Queen of Clean Comedy, and she's written a book. I think it's absolutely fascinating. In fact, I wish I had Chonda for the whole hour because there's a lot I'd like to talk to her about, but you may want to check it out because the book is really getting a lot of attention, and I think you'll find it to be pretty interesting. Anyway, it's called Laughing in the Dark, and we want to talk to Chonda about that. And Chonda, good to see you. Where are we Skyping you in from this morning?
My home in Nashville, Tennessee.
Well, nice to see you. How you doing, my friend?
You know, I'm hanging in there. Good days and bad, but grief is the gift that keeps on giving. So, and no one can do it for you. You just have to walk through it. But today's a good day. Today's a good day.
Our deepest sympathy for the loss of your husband.
Thank you very much. He was a great man, and you know, it's interesting, Perry, that I wrote "Laughing in the Dark" when I was walking through the dark, because I was clinically depressed. Now I've got some things to be depressed about, and I still find God greatly faithful, and so that's good.
Why is there darkness behind the laughter?
You know, I don't think I'm unique in that. I think there's a lot of comedians. As a matter of fact, you know, just lately in the news with the death of Robin Williams, there's a lot of us who come from dark places or maybe traumatic times in our childhood that maybe it's just slanted us a bit to enjoy the laughter or to use the laughter. And in a lot of ways, I see a lot of comics who are angry, and that comes out in their sarcasm. I see a lot of comics who are dealing with their addictions through laughter. And sometimes, you know, the devil's in the business of perverting all good things. And so even that art of comedy is used sometimes to cover up some pain. And it works for them for a while. And I think it probably was that way for me for a while, and then it didn't work. Then I had to do some deep-seated work and get to the bottom of some issues that then I become no longer sarcastic, but I enjoyed the laughter as well.
All right, Sean, I don't even know how to ask this question, but I've interviewed a lot of professionals in the past that try to describe depression and the levels of depression. But from your experience, and maybe with the reflection of Robin Williams, what is it? How would you describe it?
You know, I used to say all the time, if Satan is the author of lies, then depression is his cell phone, and he will use it to call you constantly. It is a constant view. You know, I used to tell people, go home and take a heavy feather pillow and wrap it to the top of your head. Just tie it to the top of your head and then put on a dark pair of sunglasses and wear that 24/7 until you realize it's becoming an effort to just hold your head up. And then whether it's indoor, outdoor, sunny day, you know, rainy day, keep those sunglasses on, and then you will be able to see that when you are deeply depressed, you view the world a little darker than most folks. Your head is heavier, and there is a true physical component to depression. I know that from experience, and I've also talked to a lot of folks who deal with it. Many times when depression first comes on, you think you've got the flu. You think you've got something wrong with you. You're run down, or your muscles are aching, because there's a true physical component to that psychological feeling. And then there's also the biological components of depression, where your serotonin is not what it should be. Your messages and your neurotransmitters aren't transmitting the way that they should. And so those are the very physical attributes. And I say that pointedly because depression is not a spiritual issue every time. Now, sometimes there is. Sometimes if you have really, or you're wrestling with something, or you know you're in a situation in your life that you just don't need to be, God's going to gnaw away at you until you come clean with him. But when everything is right in your life with you and the Lord and you and your spouse, and on the outside it seems like everything should be in place, and yet you are still down, that's depression. And so those are the things that you have to go get some help for. You got to talk to somebody, and sometimes talk therapy is enough. And sometimes that's not enough, and then you have to move into that biological component where you got to get some medicine, you got to get some things that's going to help your brain chemistry to balance out a little bit better. And I always tell people, I am clinically depressed. I have a chemical imbalance in my body. I'm not right now because I'm highly medicated. I thank the Lord for every milligram.
Well,
I had a come up to me at church one time and say, have you ever thought there's, some unconfessed sin in your life? And I go, well, if he doesn't know it, I'm not telling him, because he's the almighty God. Sometimes we pull out a little piece of a scripture verse and want to use it over somebody's head. Or somebody told me one time, I don't think you should talk about taking antidepressants in public because it makes your faith look weak. And I said, well, then you need to take your glasses off and drive home. We have a tendency in our world, Perry, to think we have the fix for everybody, but only God does. And sometimes if we start running our mouth, we're running ahead of God, and God is needing that person to need medicine. That God is needing that person to understand their humanity, and he works in mysterious ways, believe me.
well, thank you for your transparency in that. I'm just taken by your openness on that, because I don't know if we get a handle. I don't know if we can fully understand what you have experienced and others experience. How did you balance your faith? Did you ever feel like God was letting you down?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the sweet thing is, I told him about it a lot. Okay. And I think it was living proof that he is a loving God, because no lightning bolts came through my house. I lamented like many people in the Bible do. Oh, where are you, God? And so I was not alone in that. But like Job, you get to that place where you go, but I will still serve him. I will still, and you choose that. I think my faith has been so critically important in the foundation of getting through depression, in that I tell people all the time, rehearse in the dark what you learned in the light. In the light, I knew who God was. In the light, he was the Almighty. I knew he brings joy, and I choose his joy. And the joy of the Lord is my strength, not my own joy, but his joy. So all those things act. And so when you're not feeling them, then that's when you choose to rehearse in the dark what you learned in the light. And it works. Don't ask me how. That's engaging faith in a way you never thought you would have to. But you do, and you get through it, and it does pass, and it change. And I have learned, I know this sounds crazy, but I have learned, I'm saying it, that I have finally found to be grateful for the depression, because finally I can serve him and love him and honor him and praise him because of who he is, not because how I feel. Because if I went every day on my feelings, my goodness, I'm in the middle of menopause. My mood for the Lord changes every 5 minutes. He is not bound by our own feelings, but he is rock solid in who he is.
Wow. So you could understand Robin Williams, and did you ever get to that point yourself?
Yes, I did. And what it is, I don't know, sometimes the suicidal plan is well thought out, and you think, man, that took some ingenuity. And Robin and I share the same management team, and we share a couple of lawyers, and, we have acquaintances. I only met him briefly one time, but you want to throw your arms around somebody. That pain that he dealt with, he had to have been in such pain, and emotional pain can translate so much into physical pain that you don't even think. You aren't thinking of what it's going to do to your family. You don't think of spiritual things. You just want out of the pain. And so it's great pain that drives someone to do that. Sadly, I don't know anything about his life, but I question all the time going, when you have a loved one that you know is in that kind of pain, don't leave them alone. Don't allow them to be on the other side of a door where a door is locked. And I know that's not always easy, and I certainly wouldn't throw dispersions or guilt into anyone's life, because sometimes no matter what you try, no matter what you do, your loved one takes their life, and it's a tough place, but you can get through it. Those who are left can get on the other side of that, and those who take their lives or are thinking about it even right now as we speak, there is hope, and that moment that you feel like you've run out of hope, that's a sad moment, and he simply went out of pain. The other thing that didn't quite surprise me of the way that he took his life was that I used to tell people all the time, what goes up must come down. And Robin was notorious for being this off the wall, just almost manic, just talk and funny, and we loved that, and he was brilliant. And his mind raced faster than any of ours. But whatever goes up must come down. And I tell people all the time, if you wake up in the morning after your son's Little League game and you can't figure out why you don't want to get out of bed, it's because a few hours before you were screaming your head off and all excited at the ball game. So that adrenaline, whatever that is, has to come down at some point. And if you're prone for depression, that down is even deeply down for you. And so when you have a life like Robin's that is just so off the chart, when he comes down, it was a deep valley, and my heart goes out to his family and to those that loved him very much.
The book is entitled Laughing in the Dark. Chonda Pierce, you may want to get a copy of that, and really, she's very transparent. You're going back on tour, and I commend you for that, and your experiences. I know people like to see you in the comedian state, but isn't that a platform for you to just kind of convey God's grace?
I think for the lack of a better word, for the true Chonda follower out there, they won't be surprised that I go back to work. I have always used the comedy as, like you said, it's kind of my own opening act. Some preachers, they have a long sermon and just a little funny illustration at the beginning of it. I have a really long, funny illustration and then just a little sermon at the end. So that's kind of been my MO for my entire career, so it won't surprise anybody. For me, I lost two sisters as a teenager. I lost my mother 2 years ago, and now I've lost my husband, and it does seem like a lot, and I question that. And I told the Lord the other day, now I don't need any more components to my testimony. I'm done. And at the same time, then I get to laughing, going, my husband, it's only right that he went first, so now he has to spend some time with my mother. Because for 22 years of marriage, he avoided it. And now the Lord said, you're going to have to get to know this woman.
Oh, Chonda, you're a delight, man, an inspiration. Thank you. You'll never know how you ministered today. Thank you so much, and the best to you. And I would like to talk to you after you've come back off your tour and see how it went for you.
Better believe it. I'll probably be a little more hoarse, but I'll talk to you.
All right, sweetie. Thanks. Have a great day.
Thanks, Perry.
Okay, bye-bye. All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Welcome back. We're hearing more and more about, if I can use the term, Christians coming out of the closet in Hollywood, of all places. Well, that seems to be the case, and there seems to be now tremendous influence upon the filmmaking industry. And our own Steve Johnson had a chance to talk to actor Kevin Sorbo about that and the culture. Let's join their conversation.
Well, welcome to Focus Today with our special guest. He's a guy that if you have seen like a lot of Saturday morning TV from years ago, as well as movies in the theater now, then you'll know who Kevin Sorbo is. And he's with us today. Hello, Kevin. Good to have you with us.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
You know, I noticed you're from Mound, Minnesota.
I am.
And you also went to Moorhead State, right?
I did.
My whole family is from Minnesota, except for me. So I'm kind of familiar with that whole region there.
And where are they from?
Reamer, Walker,
sure.
Let's see,
Yeah.
Crosby, Ironton. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, I know all those places. Yeah, I grew up about 30 miles west of Minneapolis on the beautiful shores of Lake Minnetonka. And my little town of Mound, we were home to Tonka Toys.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, Minnetonka, that makes sense.
There you go.
So
now
that's
you got a little trivia.
The thriving metropolis that it is. Well, I want to ask you first, first of all, if you know the movie Hercules, then you will know Kevin Sorbo. How many years was that? Started in 95. How long was that going?
It started in 93. We did 5 2-hour movies. The 1-hour series started in 95. So we did 5 2-hour movies, and we did 6 seasons of 1-hour episodes.
Now, you've done a whole lot since then, but that's probably the one where most people start with, saying that's where we started.
But I got a pretty big following with the Gene Roddenberry crowd. I did a series called Andromeda from 2000 to 2005. So we did 5 years on that one, and that was Gene Roddenberry's first series he created after Star Trek. He wrote that way back in 1969. And when I was wrapping up my 7th year on Hercules, I started right in the year 2000, right in doing Andromeda for 5 years.
So was that kind of taking off from the Andromeda Strain, the movie?
No, not at all. Nothing to do with it. Andromeda is the closest galaxy to our own, and it was just but nothing to do with Andromeda Strain whatsoever.
Just the name. Well, you'll probably also know Kevin from God's Not Dead, which was huge at the theaters. Were you? Let me just ask you: were you a little surprised by how well that was taken?
You know, I think we all were. I think we knew we had something, a very good product. We knew that. We knew we had a great script, had a great team, great acting, a lot of actors working with, a great production team. PureFlix, I've worked with a number of times before. The first movie I shot with them was a movie called What If, which I highly recommend to people. Please go check out What If. It's with Christy Swanson, John Ratzenberger, Debbie Ryan plays my daughter. People are going to know those names. And I've just had a relationship since with PureFlix. They're based out of Scottsdale. They do they're number one in the country with faith-based and family-friendly movies in terms of distribution and shooting those. And we knew we had something good here. We just didn't know how good, because it really was word of mouth. It was people out there that are watching right now and that made this movie as big as it was, because it started on a $2 million budget, made $63 million.
Wow.
Stayed in theaters for 3 months, and now it's out on DVD. So please go check it out. Walmart, Target, eBay, wherever. Amazon, Netflix, wherever, it's out there.
Yeah, you know, this does seem to be kind of, for whatever reason, the era for some of these faith-based movies. And you've got one coming out I do want to talk to you more about in our next segment called Let the Lion Roar. So just kind of use that as a teaser. You're done with that? When's that coming out?
It's done, and it's coming out right now. So people can definitely check into that.
All right, let's back up a little bit though. Let's talk about from Mound, Minnesota to Moorhead University to Hollywood and where you are now. Talk a little bit about your faith walk from all of these areas, because you've been involved in a whole lot of stuff in Hollywood. If you go to imdb.com, it's amazing to see all the things you were involved in. How did you get to the point where you are now? And I realize that's a totally unfair question, but I'm going to ask you anyway.
Well, thank you. You know, I've got a book called True Strength. I want to give True Strength a plug. Go to truestrengthbook.com, and you can get information in there, because it's sort of an autobiographical book that's out there, also dealing with something that happened to me on Hercules, and we'll get to that later. But yeah, you know, I came out here. I went to college, went to Moorhead State University in the Fargo-Moorhead area. So I went even further north, even though I hated Minnesota winters. I love the rest of the season, but you guys can keep the winters. I've always said California has its problems, but weather's not one of them. But I didn't move out here right away. I went to Dallas, Texas for a while. I was in a theater group down there, and I started doing some commercial work, print work. I went to Europe to spend 3 months with my girlfriend. Ended up staying there for 3.5 years. Finally moved to LA, and I booked my very first commercial audition. My first audition period I booked in LA, so I'm very fortunate that way. And that was a commercial I'd shot in Sydney, Australia. So I went to Sydney to shoot for 10 days. I ended up staying there for 6 months. So I finally made it to California when I was almost 27 years. I took these 5 years off to sort of travel, 5.5 years off to be around the world. And, I just got involved in acting classes. I didn't know it was so out here. I started doing a lot of commercial work. I was very fortunate, didn't have to bartend or wait tables, stuff like that. I always just was making just enough to get by. And then I got the break on Hercules, going on auditions. I was getting some guest spots, in Cheers and Murder, She Wrote and The Commish, things like that. And then I got my break with Hercules, there's no question. And that was 7 years in New Zealand. It was supposed to be 1 year of 5 2-hour movies, which was a blessing in itself. I got to work with Anthony Quinn for a year. He played Zeus, and I got all these great old stories from him in the golden age of Hollywood. And the movies did so well, they made it a TV series.
So when you were filming Hercules, that's New Zealand?
I was New Zealand full time. I was there for 7 years, yeah.
So you were actually in Hobbitland filming there before Peter Jackson. You got one up on him.
In fact, Peter Jackson, when we were on our last year shooting, Peter Jackson took the majority of my crew, and they went on to do Lord of the Rings, and a lot of them won Academy Awards,
why?
All of our creatures were created by the guys that end up winning all those Academy Awards for all the creatures. The Weta Group, Richard Taylor and his company. Yeah.
See, I think you could have played a good Boromir. So why didn't Peter do that?
Jump in it. I was a little disappointed they didn't ask me to do something. I mean, I was down there for 7 years. We kind of helped put New Zealand on the map before Peter Jackson came along, but I got snubbed. I mean, what are you going to do? I'm not a Kiwi. I'm an American. So
you could fake the accent, though. I think that would work.
I get the accent.
You're doing these faith-based movies. What got you to that point? We're kind of hyper-spacing here now between Hercules and where you are now. What got you here?
Well, when Andromeda, my 5 years in Andromeda finished, I got in the independent world. I did a lot of, I've shot over 40 movies in the last 9 years since Andromeda finished. And, the whole thing happened through a friend of mine, Dallas Jenkins, who ended up he had a relationship with PureFlix, and he had this script called What If, which I brought up earlier, and he wanted me to read it. And I said, well, who's playing, the pastor in this movie? He said, well, I don't have anybody in mind yet. And I go, well, I would love to play it. He goes, you do it? I mean, this movie, it's a very, very low budget. And I said, this movie's awesome, and the script is fantastic. Usually when I read a script, I always want to make some changes and I want to talk to the writers, but I didn't touch anything in this one. And that started the whole relationship with these guys. And that's when God's Not Dead came in 4 years later. And we shot that down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And like I said earlier, it's just thank you to all those people out there that made the movie what it turned into.
All right. Well, okay, as a person who reads a lot of scripts, what was it that really grabbed you with this one and also caused you not to change anything?
With God's Not Dead, they knew it would be controversial, and I said, well, every movie is controversial. Every movie you're going to get, the critics are always going to pan this, or they're going to love it, or they're not. I mean, you can't please everyone. Welcome to our politically correct world, but you can't. I mean, that's just life. And, I give scripts 20 pages, and if it's not holding my interest of 20 pages, I just pass on it. Well, this one I read throughout, and I love the character, because I'm not an atheist. I'm a Christian, but I have atheist friends. We've had debates. We've had discussions. We parted as friends. But here's a character, and I know family family members and friends that have gone to college and been persecuted by their college professors just for having a faith. They find out that they're Christian, or they believe in God, or whatever they may be. They can be Jewish who believe in God, and they just get attacked for their faith. And I found that kind of interesting. I find it amazing that I've seen these atheists on Fox and CNN, and they have foundations, and they have groups, and they have clubs, and they're so angry. They're so filled with hate. And I'm always, on one hand, I feel sorry for them. On the other hand, I kind of laugh at them, going, how can you get this upset and this angry about something you don't believe in? I never understood that logic. There's plenty of things I don't believe in, and I don't care if someone else wants to believe in it. I don't get upset and form a club about it. So I base that character on those people that I see on these television shows.
Let's talk about the point then that you became a follower of Christ. Was that something that was at a young age, or was that later on?
Yeah. As far as I know, it was with my whole life. I mean, I grew up in the Lutheran world out there in Minnesota, which is very typical for the Scandinavian countries and Germans and Norwegians. I'm Norwegian, second generation, and they settled in that Midwest area, North and South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, and grew up in a Lutheran church. But I think when I was 14, I went and saw Billy Graham speak in St. Paul. It was outside. It was like 100,000, 200,000 people. It was amazing. And I think that was at an age where I was starting to really not question my faith, but just sort of maybe understanding more about religion and faith and belief. And that sort of cemented it for me in terms of realizing that, the world wasn't created, by me. There's a much higher power involved in all the stars. And, you look at a flower, you look at the stars, and you look at the moon, you're going, well, wait a minute. Okay, this didn't just happen. Something actually made it happen. And that's something we've given a name to is God.
You know, given what you said about some people, forming their own organizations against something they don't believe, I think that's an insightful way of putting it. Were there any difficulties that you had in Hollywood because people who may have known your faith and the roles that you were trying for, and maybe were you overlooked at all? Do you know anything about that?
I'm also like an independent voter, probably more conservative than independent, but I've voted on both sides of the political fence, and anything right of left in Hollywood, even if you're independent, you're sort of ostracized, you're sort of attacked, which is another thing I find funny for an industry that screams for tolerance and screams for freedom of speech. But it's pretty one-sided, actually. The hypocrisy pretty much rules here in Hollywood. I'm grateful for what Hollywood's done for me. I've worked my butt off to get to where I am. They owe me nothing, but I find it kind of sad that there's such an anger towards people that have a faith. Hollywood is run mostly by the Jewish community, and I believe Jews believe in God. So I don't know. It's weird. It's a weird sort of attack on. I mean, look what's going around the world right now, where Christians are being crucified in Nigeria, in Egypt, and churches are being burnt down. And you look what's going on in Iraq right now, where the Muslims are beheading their own people because they're not Muslims, that they're Christians in Iraq. And there's no uproar over that, which is strange to me. It's strange that. That you don't see a lot of things in the news about it. That the mainstream media keeps that out of the news, and I don't get it. I wish I had the answers for that. I don't understand why there's so much anger. But as someone said, angry people are going to be angry, and there's not much you can do about their anger.
Yeah. You know what? I want to get into the new movie that you've got coming out here in just a few minutes. We're going to take a break here. I want our listeners and viewers to know that we're talking to Kevin Sorbo of, a whole plethora of movies that he's been involved in. You've known him for Andromeda as well as the whole Hercules series, and you saw him in God's Not Dead. He's got a new movie coming out just about now called Let the Lion Roar, and we're going to continue our discussion with Kevin Sorbo coming up right here on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. Compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Well, welcome back to Focus Today. Our guest is Kevin Sorbo. We're continuing our discussion with him and the movies that he has just completed that you may have seen. Probably, it seems like just completed since it was at the theater not too long ago, but you actually completed God's Not Dead probably, a year ago? Is that right?
About a year and a half.
Year and a half?
About a year and a half ago, yeah.
Do you have to remind yourself of the plot when you go to the opening? What was this all about anyway?
Well, sometimes, that movie certainly stuck with me. So, there are movies that I've done, and then they want to talk about it much later, where I've got to, wait a minute, what was that about? I look back at these old episodes of Hercules because my kids now are loving it, because Hercules is out on Netflix, it's on DVD, so I'm getting a whole generation of new kids that were under the age of 18 that are watching it for the first time. So I'll look at an episode with my kids and go, wow, I remember every episode of Hercules and Andromeda, my other series, in its entirety, I remember it. But you get the scenes, I'm going, wow, that's me talking, but I have no recall of me doing that scene. So that's a little scary in itself. But so you do have to kind of remind yourself.
Well, when you see your kids watching it, what is their reaction? Are they saying that's Dad, or?
Oh no, they love it. Because we homeschool, so I travel a lot. I'm on the movie sets, a month here, 6 weeks there, wherever it may be. So they get to travel a lot. So they've all grown up on a movie set, so they understand the making of these things. But when they see me, they think it's pretty cool. I got 2 boys and a girl, and they're my oldest just turned 13. My other boy is 10, and my girl's 8, and they think it's pretty cool that that I played Hercules on TV. So, do
you have any possibility that they're going to follow you in your footsteps?
Oh, unfortunately, my 2 boys are already taking acting classes.
Really?
So it's like, well, and I kind of knew that would happen when they sort of see, what it's like to be on a set, and they like it, and they're they have a lot less fear than I do at that age. When I was, 10 years old, I certainly wouldn't have gotten into an acting class. I sort of knew I wanted to be an actress by the time since I was 11, but I think I was fearful of even attempting to make that effort. So,
we were talking a little bit about the Hollywood aspect, the culture, and all the rest, and we've talked to representatives from the Hollywood Prayer Network and so on, and they have their focused, saying pray for us in this particular area. From the outside, it almost looks as if this is a wall that's somewhat impenetrable when you are cast as a Christian. I think of Jim Caviezel and The Passion. I mean, it took him a long time to kind of get out of whatever he had been labeled with. I know he's got a new movie out as well. Is it any more open now?
Pardon me?
Is it any more open now than it has been in the past, do you think, or is it still a barrier?
I think it's still a little bit of a barrier. I think it's slowly that barrier is breaking down. I've known Jim Caviezel a long time with the same manager for about 8 years. He stayed busy. I mean, The Passion, you look at the success of that. I mean, Hollywood gave Mel Gibson a pretty hard time while he was making that, but that, it's a $30 million movie and made like $500-600 million worldwide. So you can't deny the success there. I mean, it is called show business, so you hope they look at the business side of it. But you look at God's Not Dead, you look at Son of God, you look at Heaven's for Real, and how well those movies did on lower budgets. And I think Hollywood's got to pay attention a little bit and realize that there's a whole audience out there that wants these type of programs. They want movies that reflect their own belief, their own faith. And pardon me, that's someone calling for my wife probably. And it's just, but it's I think you're going to see more of them jump in there. And Sony has the Affirmed division. And I did a movie with him a few years ago called Soul Surfer, based on the Bethany Hamilton story. I was in that movie with Dennis Quaid and Helen Hunt, Carrie Underwood, and Anna Sophia Robb, who did a wonderful job in that movie. And, I think slowly but surely, Blindside, you can certainly qualify that as a faith-based, family-friendly movie. So, I don't think these movies are going to stop being made. And I think with the cheaper, when I say cheaper, the value's not cheaper, production value, but the cameras that are so amazing now are getting easier and easier to buy, and the production value high def is incredible. So you're going to have more and more people making smaller movies that will move on into the mainstream like God's Not Dead did.
Yeah, it's an amazing technological phase that we're at right now. Let the Lion Roar. I want to hear about that. We've got the trailer, though, to air for people who haven't seen that. So I want to air that right now, and we're going to continue our discussion with Kevin Sorbo about this movie that you should be seeing at the theater.
For almost 2,000 years, an evil deception has been sustained by key church leaders. This insidious conspiracy has stolen the church's identity. It has withheld the church's destiny. It has blinded millions. Until now. Deception is broken, the church will arise in its full glory. When this deception is annihilated, the church will be one. When this deception is rescinded, the church will finally operate in its complete power. All of this will take place once the ancient conspiracy is fully revealed. Discover the truth.
Escape the great deception. Escape the great deception. Escape the great deception.
Lion Roar. It looks like it's combining kind of going back into the medieval history into like bringing it up into the current category of where we are now. How would you describe this film for people who need to know perhaps what they're going to go see?
Well, I think it gives a very interesting history of how the church was formed and how the church went off to a different track that it probably shouldn't have gone on. And it shows. I play John Calvin in the movie, who was a disciple of Luther. And there's a number of people in this movie. John Schneider's in the movie. Eric Roberts is in the movie. And it goes back, not only back to that century, but it goes back 1,000 years even before that. So it covers pretty much like the last 15 to 1,700 years of the variations of what the church went through. And it's the attempt is to try to get all the churches really to get back on the right track and understanding where God wanted us to go, where God wanted us to be.
And I thought there was one scene there that looked like it was Martin Luther at the Wittenberg door putting up his thesis. I mean, does it go kind of to touchstone points throughout Christianity? Is that kind of the idea?
Oh, no question. I mean, it covers quite a bit of history. I think a lot of people out there, whether they're Christians or not, whether they're believers or not, whether they believe in God or not, will find this sort of interesting in terms of history. I've always said the problem that why history repeats itself is people don't read history anymore. So here's a chance to learn more about the evolution of the church from just after Christ to where we are today. And I think people will find it pretty fascinating.
So it refers to the great deception of the church. Give us an insight, as much as we should know anyway, because it's always nice to have some things that we don't know when we see a film. Well,
no, but I think when it refers to the great deception, it's just basically talking about how we how we've gotten off that path, how we got off the path that was intended for us to be on. And I think it deals with really what's going on in churches today, because so what's going on in churches today with pastors and priests, they're sort of conforming to the politically correct world when we should be really speaking the truth. There's so much truth that people don't want to hear anymore. People would rather be lied to. They'd rather live in that John Lennon imagined world that doesn't exist, you know? And I think what this does is hit you over the head with where we need to be, where we have to be. I'm not a guy that goes around and beating people up. I mean, people ask me about my faith. I say I believe in God, but I don't try to bang people over the head and say, you better believe the way I believe or you're going to hell. I'm a live and let live kind of guy. I'm more than happy to have debate, more than happy to have discussions with people. As I said earlier, I have friends who are atheists, and we've had wonderful discussions, and we've parted as friends. And, you know, they give me their 2 cents, I give them my 2 cents. And this movie is really another example of giving 2 cents of what we need to come back to, which is common sense.
Well, it sounds like this is a kind of film that's going to create some discussions, even among Christians, perhaps, who didn't realize they had a difference of a view. And in what way? Do you think is this a faith-changing film, do you think?
I think it can be, certainly. I mean, you know, like you said, when you do movies, you do things that deal with politics, deal with religion, you're always going to get people in the uproar that are going to disagree with it. I mean, look at the different. What this deals with is you look at the different factions, all the different places have gone off to form their own religion, and everybody thinks their religion is better than somebody else's religion. And I think that's what causes a lot of anger in the world, and I think it's even caused some wars in the world. So this is more of an accurate historical portrayal of what happened within the church system to get to where we are today with so many different religions. And am I trying to make one religion? I'm not trying to make one religion with this. I don't think that's the message of the movie. The message is one of just trying to get the world back to where it should be in terms of getting along with each other, because we certainly don't get along with each other.
Yeah. Now, you said you played John Calvin in this film, right?
Yes.
Also St. Augustine and Martin Luther in there. Was there anything that you might have learned from this that maybe you didn't know, past history or Christian theology?
Well, I mean, the thing that strikes me most, I didn't realize how big of a hater of Jews that Calvin was. But that's kind of where Luther was coming from as well. And I think that was one of the problems of the movie, that it's good that it deals with, to show where these people went wrong. Because the reality is Jesus was Jewish.
Yeah,
so it's interesting to see what Calvin learned from Luther and sort of carried that on with his own anger and hatred towards Jews, which was obviously quite wrong.
Now, let me ask you a little bit about the style of this. I've only seen the trailer, but it looks like it's a different kind of a feel. Was this done before a lot of green screen, or how was the filming done? The style looks a little different in the trailer anyway. Was there anything unique?
I think that was designed on purpose. There's certainly green screen, there's animation, there's 2D, there's 3D animation. So I think it was a style that they wanted to put within the movie, just to make it's sort of like a documentary as well, just to sort of make it more interesting to look at instead of just following the same formula.
Well, that's fascinating. Okay, Let the Lion Roar. It should be out just about right now, and
yep.
It looks. It says at 91 special effects shots. We'll have to count them all. We'll have to see about that. What do you have coming up? I know a lot of actors like yourself. You've got stuff that you've already done. It's in post production. All the rest. What's happening with you?
Yeah, I've got from PureFlix again. I've got straight to DVD. It's a third part called Revelation Road, which will be out this fall, and I've got a movie coming out in theaters called The Secret Handshake, written by Howie Klausner. Howie directed as well. Howie was also the writer of a screenplay that was up for an Academy Award called The Space Cowboys with Clint Eastwood and Tommy Lee Jones and the late James Garner.
Wow, I forgot about that one. I actually like that one.
It's a good movie. It's a good movie. So.
Well, that's good. You know what? I have a feeling we lost Kevin right there, but oh, you're still there, Kevin? I think we may. Channel? Yes. Go ahead. We just lost you there for a moment there. You were saying after Space Cowboys, what again?
I've got 2 more movies coming up that I'm shooting later this year, and one's a family comedy. Another one is a family sort of drama dealing with the rodeo world, and then I've got a lot of speaking engagements coming up. Like, people can go to kevinsorbo.net to find out when I'm speaking. I've got a book that's out. That's what I'm speaking on, called True Strength. So people, please check that out. It deals with the 3 strokes I suffered on Hercules and my recovery from that. So if you want to find out about that, that's a shocker for a lot of people. But I had an illness that took me a while to recover from.
Wow, that is amazing. Good. Well, I'll tell you what. Maybe we'll get you back for another segment once one of your other films comes out. We'll kind of put that on hold. Kevin Sorbo, our guest, of course, involved in a whole lot of things, Hercules, as well as you may have seen him in God's Not Dead and upcoming Let the Lion Roar. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Fascinating, to say the least. Well, coming up, we are delighted and honored to have back with us Dr. Richard Land. He's the president of the Southern Evangelical Seminary, and he just returned with others from the NRB from Israel, and he's going to report his discoveries there in just a few moments.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Well, we're delighted to have back with us today Dr. Richard Land. He's the president of the Southern Evangelical Seminary, and he, with some others from the National Religious Broadcasters, went to Israel. We want to talk to him about that. But Dr. Land, before we get into it, nice to see you, my friend. Give a plug for your 21st Annual National Conference on Christian Apologetics.
We're really excited about it. We've got Michael Behe coming, Mr. Intelligent Design. We've got Walter Kaiser, Norm Geisler, J. Werner Wallace. It's going to be a tremendous time. We've got 3 tracks, and you can jump back and forth between the tracks. We've got a cultural apologetics track. We've got a historical apologetics track, and then we've got a scientific apologetics track. And we're really looking forward to it.
Well, that's great. And there's still room and time to get registered, right?
There is. We sold out last year, had to turn people away, so we've moved to a larger venue this year. We'll have room for anybody who wants to come. It's going to be at Calvary Church in Charlotte, North Carolina, October 10th and 11th. And you can find out more information by going to ses.edu.
All right, SES.edu. Well, good to see you, my friend. You're just back from a trip with the NRB. Why'd you all team up and go over there?
Well, it was a Christian Solidarity with Israel trip. It was some of the national religious broadcasters, Ann Graham Lotz and Jerry Rose and Kay Arthur, Tony Perkins and myself and some others went over there to express solidarity with the Israelis during this time of siege. And they were so appreciative. I mean, this is my 10th trip to Israel, my first one being in 1979. And we've never, they really were very appreciative. We've never been more warmly greeted. They really are feeling alone in the world with the rise of anti-Semitism resurging in Europe and across the globe. And they do understand that the best friends they've got are evangelical Christians.
All right, because that was my next question. In spite of the fact that we have reelected a president who seems to be anti-Israel, certainly not supportive, can the Christian support, the evangelical support, get through that maze to the Israelis over there that we stand with them?
Yes, I think it is. I think it is getting through. They are very disturbed about President Obama. As one of the security officials that briefed us told me, he said, look, George W. Bush was the best president of the United States that Israel's ever had, and President Obama is the worst. And we're having difficulty adjusting to the difference. Whoa. And I said, I understand. Yeah. But they do understand that evangelical Christians back them and back them strongly. And one of the ways that we can help them is by making it clear that it's safe to go over there. And if you're going to take a Bible tour, if you're thinking about taking a Bible tour, if you ever wanted to do a Bible tour, now is the time to vote with your feet, to vote with your pocketbook, and go, because their tourism is down 30%, and tourism is a big part of their economy.
Yeah, right. Well, what moved you the most while you were there?
Wow. I'd have to say it's a tie between hearing a Jewish guide at a biblical preserve show us the branches coming off of an olive tree and how you can plant the branches and it'll become another olive tree. And she quotes Isaiah 11:1 that the Messiah will be out of a root from the branch of Jesse, and that's referring to Jesus.
Whoa.
And then, I mean, I must tell you, this is my 10th trip, and I've never seen the Israelis in general less hostile, more sympathetic, and more receptive to the Messiah than they were on this trip. The second thing was, we went down, we insisted on going down to the settlements in the south. So we put ourselves in harm's way. And we were down within sight of the Gaza border. And while we were there in a settlement, the air raid sirens went off twice, and we had to go into the air raid shelters. And we heard the Iron Dome anti-missile get one of them, and one of them landed. One of them landed and blew up a house that fortunately nobody was in, about 3/4 of a mile from where we were. And it sounded close, and it felt closer. We could feel the repercussion. But the thing that moved me was we were in a children's bomb shelter. There's a daycare center there, and just right across the sidewalk was a bomb shelter for the children. And the children, evidently, when the sirens go off, they know exactly what to do. They go get into the bomb shelter.
Wow.
And it was decorated with children's artwork and stuff. Oh. And I just thought, the Israelis are being asked to bear the unbearable. Yeah. With 20 rocket attacks a day in some of these settlements near the border.
Wow. I got a minute left. What can we do as Christians to show our solidarity?
You need to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. You need to contact your senators and your congressmen and the president and make it clear that you want the United States to stand with Israel and Israel's right to defend itself and to live within secure borders. And you need to, as I said, if you're contemplating a trip to Israel, if you ever wanted to go to the Holy Land, go now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Land. I know you're very busy and your schedule's tight. Again, I want to remind our viewers and listeners, you can go to
edu.
Oh, yeah, that's right, ses.edu, and register for their upcoming apologetics conference coming up in October. I think you'll find it to be pretty inspiring, and that's October 10th and 11th. There's still room available for you to register and go. Keep up the good work, my friend, and we'll have you back again soon.
Well, I'll do my best to keep up the good work, and shalom.
Oh, shalom. All right, thank you. All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at the Dove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, thedove.us.